So what I've got for you guys today, let's pull it up here, is an article from the Implicates that says Candace Owens says Trump will pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. That's right. I know. I had a French person say it's Ghislaine. I'm like, nah, she's Ghislaine. For the rest of her life, she's Ghislaine. We all know that. We're sticking it with it. Candace Owens says Trump will pardon Ghislaine Maxwell because he's implicated in Epstein files. He is being so deceitful, it's incredible. This article goes on to say Candace Owens told her viewers on Wednesday not to act surprised when President Donald Trump pardons Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice and convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, arguing the president was implicated in being so deceitful, it's incredible. Who's protecting that right now? Trump, said Owens during a discussion about government files relating to Epstein. Don't even act surprised when he pardons Ghislaine. That would just be foolish of you, foolish of me to think that he's not going to pardon Ghislaine. Okay? Now this is, look, we are in a weird reality, guys. I've seen a bunch of people say, it's weird to find myself agreeing with somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I've seen people say things like it's weird to find themselves agreeing with Elon Musk. And I know all of you had a moment during the inauguration of Joseph Biden when you said, am I actually going to say that Mike Pence did something good? That's where we're at. Because Candace Owens, guys, Candace Owens is fucking nuts. Candace Owens is crazy, and Candace Owens is a grifter. And when you see people like Candace Owens calling this out, or Joe Rogan calling this out, you have to ask yourself, how low are the people that are still defending Donald Trump and his administration after the amount of evidence that has came out to show that he is implicated in these files? How low are these people? How far down is that bar now? She continued, Trump is implicated by his sheer deceit right now in this moment. He is being so deceitful, it's incredible. And it seems to only be getting worse because now they keep pretending that they're trying to get to the bottom of everything. But they don't actually get to the bottom of everything. They actually seem to just be covering things up. They're making moves that only reveal a deeper cover-up. And we see that when we see Todd Blanche head over to the prison that Maxwell was earlier being held in before she was, sent to a posh Club Med prison, for her capitulation. And she said, nothing Donald Trump has ever done is bad. There was nothing I ever saw Donald Trump do that was bad. And only a moron would think that there is no connection between Todd Blanche going and getting her to say that and then her being removed from a medium security prison and then sent to a low security prison. By the way, something that does not happen. Something that they had to literally bend the rules to have done for her. Owens, who allegedly spoke with the president recently on the phone. By the way, the reason supposedly she spoke to him on the phone was because she's currently being sued by the French president and his wife for saying that the French president's wife is a man. And actually, a lot of these weird MAGA conspiracy theorists believe that not only is she a man, but she's actually her brother. And two UK journalists last year had to pay defamation to Macron after being shown that this, of course, was not happening. And we've seen this over and over again. This is obvious trans hate. This is obviously appealing to people in the MAGA world that are so lowbrow, so hateful, so angry that all you have to do is say, this woman looks as though she's a transgender woman, therefore she is a man. We see it when they call Michelle Obama Mike Obama. They're afraid of Michelle Obama. They're afraid of what would happen if Michelle Obama ran. Because they know that they need to get out ahead of that. They need to talk about that she looks like a man, that she's a black woman. Because if she ever gets on that stage and she ever talks and she ever gives a speech and she ever says that she is joining up and she's going to run for the office, they know they're fucked. So they start with the hate. So once again, that's why she was allegedly Trump called Candace Owens to say, you should back off of that. You should back off of that. I've seen her up close. I think she's a woman. That's his words. I think she's a woman. Because Candace Owens is even further out than most people are, and Trump right now needs deals to be done with the French because he's already looking terrible on all these trade deals that he's getting screwed over on. So, allegedly, she spoke with the president recently on the phone. Then noted Maxwell's transfer to a minimum security prison, which took place just 1 week after U.S. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's failed private lawyer, the guy who literally lost and helped Donald Trump become a 34-time felon. By the way, he is still a 34-time felon, who sat down to interview Maxwell about Epstein's activities. She's already in a low-security prison, but they're now transferring her into an even lower security prison, which is known as Camp Bryant, and remarkably, when questioned about this, Trump says that he didn't even know that that was happening, she said. She then played a clip of Trump claiming to be unaware of the transfer, but such a thing, it's not unusual. It is very unusual for this to happen. It is an anomaly. She continued, the best part of that actually is when he says in the middle, and I'm going to quote it here directly, he says, and I think, referring to Todd Blanc, and I think that he probably wants to make sure that people that should not be involved or aren't involved are not hurt by something. And I think Candace is realizing something I'm realizing here. And when he says people being hurt that should not be hurt, he's talking about himself. He's talking about Donald Trump, as Donald Trump oftentimes does. So she goes on to say, that would be very, very unfortunate and very unfair to a lot of people, he said. And he keeps saying that over and over again. Owens questioned, why does he keep offering that? Well, the obvious answer is because he himself and other people around him would be implicated, and that's the real reason. That's actually him being honest. Like, Todd Blanc's job is to go there to make sure that unfair things don't happen to people that could get swept up in this, and if you're Todd Blanc, how would you do that? Exactly. First of all, Todd Blanc, like I said, he's the one who lost that. Apparently, he's so good at his job, guys. So good at his job that he lost a 34 conviction felony sentence in the cover-up case that Donald Trump was found guilty in. So good, guys. These people literally recreate history. They rewrite it. To Donald Trump, this guy is a winner. A guy who definitely did not lose that case. And the more that we see somebody like Donald Trump talking, the more you see how guilty he is. Because if this was anybody else and they were not implicated in those files, what they would be saying, no, I'm not in those files. I'll release those files. We'll make sure that the victims are protected, but I have nothing to hide. But instead, Donald Trump says, I don't know. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Never seen the files. It's a made-up Obama hoax. Obama, the Clintons, and Biden, they all got together and wrote fan fiction about me and left it as a ticking time bomb. But the obvious lie in that is the very thing that MAGA themselves are spreading around. MAGA keeps saying, well, why didn't he use that against him? Why didn't Kamala Harris use that against him? Well, if it's all made up, they would have used it against him. But the reality is that there are people that are not part of Trump's circle that are in those files. There's a lot of people, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and politicians, and people across the globe that are implicated in those files. And if you were a person that had nothing to hide, even if your name was in those files, you know what you'd say? You would say, release the files because it will exonerate me. But he will continue, guys. He will continue to stand up there and make excuses because he's scared, because he knows. Why do you think he's doing this thing in Texas right now? Ask yourself that. Why do you think it is? Do you think it's just a political game? Do you think that when Donald Trump calls the congressmen and women in Texas, are there any women? I guess Jasmine Crockett's over there. When he calls him, he ain't calling Jasmine Crockett. When he calls him and says, I want you to redistrict, I want you to gerrymander, something that's supposed to only happen once every decade. I want you to gerrymander, and I want you to get me 5 more seats in the House. Do you think that's for political reasons? Because I don't. I think it's to protect his own ass. Because I think Donald Trump is scared as fuck right now. Because not only if the House turns blue and the Senate turns blue, will they start asking for those files and getting those files and releasing those files and talking about the things in those files. Donald Trump is possibly going to be impeached. Should be impeached. Should be impeached. And he is scared to death. Because if he gets impeached, that's not just he's getting impeached. He's getting impeached when they release all the information. There is one thing that Donald Trump holds in the most esteem. More esteem than anything else. And that is his legacy. He wants this world to believe that he is the greatest president that has ever existed. Regardless of what the political historians have said, that they have placed him, 42 or 45th, the lowest intellect president that has ever existed in American history. Regardless of that, Donald Trump thinks he can still salvage this. He thinks he can still salvage his legacy. And if he loses in November in the midterms, and the House turns blue and the Senate turns blue, he is not only just going to be impeached, but he is going to lose that legacy with, let's say, 80% of the country, because there's still going to be 20% of this country that thinks it's all a lie, that are still going to protect this dude. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and check out that video on the screen now.